Hello, I'm Chris Houchin, the FDA account leader for Guidehouse. Welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. Today we'll be talking to Dr. Peter Marks, the director of FDA's Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, CBER. In his role, Dr. Marks leads an incredible team of researchers, regulatory professionals, and others that are facilitating the development and availability of safe and effective medical products. We're going to hear Dr. Marks's insights on how data analytics, generative AI, and other tools are used by CBER and industry throughout the drug development, review, approval, and post-market surveillance processes. Welcome, Dr. Marks, and thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me today.
Dr. Marks, the breadth of CBER's responsibilities is huge. I know vaccines have been a major storyline for your center as we continue to navigate through COVID, but cell and gene therapy is also a big focus for you. In fact, as we record this podcast, a new treatment was just approved to treat sickle cell disease. Congratulations. I know that's a big day. This is very much a growing industry, which comes with unique challenges. A big part of the excitement around CGT relates to individualized medicine and targeted therapies, oftentimes addressing rare diseases. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges and opportunities related to data sets for treatments affecting small population sizes?
Yeah, so small populations really do present us with some unique challenges. In general, we're dealing with population sizes where the concept of doing traditional randomized trials are just not really acceptable for a variety of reasons, often because either there are not large enough patient numbers or because the small number of patients that exist will not really accept traditional randomization. So one has to think about novel trial designs, and then one uses novel trial designs and then has to extract, you have to extract as much information as you can. And so that means using all of the statistical designs that we can. Sometimes early on, it means applying Bayesian designs to dose finding. And then in terms of looking at the data that comes out of the trials, sometimes using designs in which the individual who's enrolled is their own control through a run-in period, or sometimes using delayed starts of treatment for different individuals. So a variety of ways of trying to address this. But it means that the data from each individual has to be leveraged as much as possible in order to try to come to a place of understanding whether the product actually has effectiveness.
Yeah, and I know there's been a lot of guidance around decentralized trials and kind of just bringing all of that data together in terms of how it presents to the FDA for the eventual approval of products.
For this concept of decentralized trials, I think in some cases, to the extent that it can assist in these rare disease populations by getting additional individuals enrolled, I think that's going to be very, very helpful. There's a balance here between the special assessments, which can sometimes be necessary in rare diseases for determining whether a product is effective, and the ability to do things more in the community where you can potentially attract more individuals. And in some cases, this can be balanced by having initial visits at an academic center and then follow-up visits in local communities. So this concept of decentralized trials could be something quite helpful in rare disease investigation.
Great. There's been a lot of talk about real world data and real world evidence and how that's affecting the regulatory processes, inputs on new technologies. How have those two elements, real world data, real world evidence, changed how we use data to better understand how cell and gene therapies are improving and saving lives?
Yeah, so real world evidence is something we've gotten increasingly familiar with. A fair amount of experience in the world of oncology with it. And also during the pandemic, we got a fair amount of experience with it with our vaccines. And we've used it not just with the COVID-19 vaccines, but with other vaccines, including influenza, to look at effectiveness. Now, for gene therapies and cell therapies, in the upfront piece, prior to approval, we haven't seen a major role at this point in time for real-world evidence. But where we very much see real-world evidence being helpful is once a product is approved, trying to continue to gather data on the product in its use, because in many cases this is going to be critical. A gene therapy may be approved with 1 year of follow-up data, but ultimately we are interested, both the patients who receive it, the payers who pay for it, and FDA who regulates it. We're all interested in how long that durability is. And that may be easiest to obtain in terms of cost and convenience for the patient through real-world data, real-world evidence, by using essentially standard of care data that's pulled into the mix. So I think we'll see that. And actually, the Regenerative Medicine Advanced Therapy designation, when it was created, actually anticipated the potential use of real-world evidence for cell and gene therapies, because it's one of the ways that post-approval commitments can actually be fulfilled for accelerated approval.
Oh, yeah, that's great. And I guess, one of the exciting things that I could see, and I love your input on this, is do you see that the real world evidence could be used to expedite and streamline future development of kind of next generation products through sort of established platforms? You have, as the evidence comes in for things like CRISPR and CAR T, you can use that to almost speed up parts of the approval process.
Yeah, well, I think real-world evidence around, it may not be just around a single product, but around a class of products, may help us get a better sense of what we need to see as we move forward. So I think this ability to take data that we have on a given class of products or an individual product and leverage it for future product development is certainly going to be there. I mean, I think we can see how it's worked for vaccines. It certainly can potentially work in the gene therapy area, especially as we get more experience and can leverage data across products. It may those real world data may help inform us as to how to do things better for future products in terms of immune responses or other aspects of the therapies.
Yeah, it's really exciting to think about the inputs and outputs in between, and FDA facilitating some of that with industry. So with that, what opportunities do you see for industry to make better use of data to help inform FDA and or support the regulatory approval process? And that's for CGT and other biologic products.
Yeah, I mean, I think industry can help itself by essentially, to the extent that they can gather baseline data on conditions before they start development programs, trials. That's very helpful. It's sometimes hard because it's a challenge in rare diseases, but the more data we have, the better. The other aspect of this, I think, is for industry to engage in a robust dialogue with the agency as they're planning to gather data both early on and later on in the development programs, so that we're on the same page about the data that's actually being gathered. Because sometimes what might seem to be the most reasonable thing to gather may not be the perfect thing from our perspective at FDA. So I think that dialogue is a good thing to have early on.
Yeah, save everybody, some of the back and forth and maybe resources wasted with the wrong type of data.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time today, Dr. Marks. It's certainly an exciting time for FDA, the industry, and the public as we continue to push what's possible with to speed innovations that make medical products more effective, safer, and more affordable. We really do appreciate it. Everyone, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews and have a good day.
Thanks very much.